Amid crucial talks in Geneva over the US's proposed peace plan, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that there is an understanding that the US proposals may include a number of elements based on Ukrainian perspectives and critical for Ukrainian national interests. Zelensky has also said that Ukraine is focused on working as constructively as possible. The comments come amid a diplomatic flurry in Geneva. Talks were held between US and Ukrainian officials to discuss a draft US plan to end the war. According to US officials, the talks have been productive and even conclusive in some areas. The talks were taking place at the US mission to the United Nations in Geneva in the presence of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, among others. The Ukrainian and US delegations had detailed discussions about the plan ahead of formal talks aimed at ironing out details of the agreement. In a post on X, Andriy Yermak, who is heading the Ukrainian delegation, said that they had begun their work in Geneva to achieve lasting peace in Ukraine. Ahead of the crucial talks, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that Ukraine's borders cannot be changed by force. Its army cannot be reduced, leaving it vulnerable to any attack, and the European Union must have a central role in a peace deal.
We have agreed on the main elements necessary for a just and lasting peace and Ukraine's sovereignty. And let me highlight three of them. First, borders cannot be changed by force. Second, as a sovereign nation, there cannot be limitations on Ukraine's armed forces that would leave the country vulnerable to future attack and thereby also undermining European security. Third, the centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected.
Von der Leyen's remarks came a day after European leaders met on the sidelines of the G20 summit in South Africa. They said in a joint statement that the plan requires additional work. A short while back, Trump lashed out at Ukraine and Europe. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote that Ukrainian leadership has expressed zero gratitude for US-led efforts to end the war. He also blamed Europe for continuing to buy Russian oil. Earlier, the president had said that the proposed plan is not his final offer, hinting that there is room for Ukraine and for European allies to maneuver, keeping the draft plan as a basis for the talks.
No, not my part. No, we'd like to get the peace. It should have happened a long time ago. The Ukraine war with Russia should have never happened. If I were president, it never would have happened. We're trying to get it ended. One way or the other, we have to get it ended.
However, it seems unlikely that an agreement can be reached by November 27th, which is the deadline set by Trump for Zelensky to agree to the proposed plan. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is skeptical that a solution agreeable to Ukraine can be found in such a short span of time. Merz added that he had made his own proposal, currently being discussed in Geneva, on how to at least take a first step by Thursday if the 28 points are too much to cover.
The task now is to use the 28-point plan presented by the U.S. government as a basis for drafting a document that is acceptable to all parties, which will be presented by Ukraine, accepted, and used in negotiations with Russia. I have made another proposal which falls short of a complete solution, so to speak. I don't want to go into detail here because it is currently being negotiated in Geneva.
Reports suggest the peace plan calls on Ukraine to give up the eastern Donbas region and recognize Crimea, Luhansk and Donetsk as parts of Russia. Ukraine is also expected to withdraw its forces from parts of Donetsk that it controls. The proposed plan limits Ukraine's armed forces to 600,000 personnel and prohibits it from joining the NATO, but makes it eligible for an EU membership. Dr. Charles Kupchen is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. He is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Dr. Kupchen, thanks very much for your time. Let's start with the U.S. 28 peace proposal, the deadline set by Trump, which many say is not feasible. And then Trump posted a truth saying, quote, Kyiv has shown zero gratitude for American support during the Russia-Ukraine war. What's the dynamics here of both Trump and the proposal?
Well, I think, Trump sincerely wants to end this war. Trump, I think, has done the right thing by establishing a dialogue with Vladimir Putin between Washington and Moscow, because this war will end at the negotiating table only if there is a meeting of the minds that includes Washington and Moscow, but does not exclude Kyiv and European capitals. But I think the key here is the idea that this is simply a starting point. We now have a plan. It's got 28 points. Many of those 28 points are unacceptable to Ukraine and unacceptable to Ukraine's European allies. So I think what we're going to see in the coming days and weeks is an effort to say, okay, how do we fix this plan? Let's work with it. I don't think that Zelensky would do himself any favors by just rejecting it out of hand, because then Trump might walk away. So this is really perhaps the beginning of the end, but we are not anywhere close to a deal that is going to get us a lasting ceasefire.
Dr. Kupchan, Europe says the proposal needs some work. In fact, von der Leyen says borders cannot be changed by force. There cannot be limitations on Ukraine's armed forces that would leave the country vulnerable, and the centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected. Your reaction?
Well, there are lots of issues that I think need to be clarified and changed. One of them, you mentioned these caps on the size of the Ukrainian force to 600,000. Well, what about caps on Russian forces in eastern Ukraine? There has to be balance. If you're going to put constraints on Ukraine, you need constraints on the Russians. I agree with Ursula von der Leyen that we cannot recognize Donbass and other parts of occupied Ukraine as legally part of Russia. That would legalize illegality, right? This is annexation by conquest. So yes, realism, pragmatism may require Ukraine and its supporters to give up for now on restoring territorial integrity, but to recognize these occupied territories as part of Russia, I think, would be a mistake. And then another key issue is, what is the status of the Ukraine that's left on the other side of the ceasefire line? Is it free? Is it independent? The agreement calls for elections in 100 days. That's not realistic. It may be a plan to topple Zelensky and achieve regime change. So there are lots and lots of issues that need to be fixed if this plan is going to go anywhere.
Dr. Charles Kupchan, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.